Okay, hi everyone. My name is Amber Horton, and I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about my project for iCOM 495, which is called Literature Lives. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview to start, and the premise behind Lives is that um, a lot of people are very unaware about the current state of the publishing industry, especially with digital publishing and ebooks and Kindle books and Nooks and all kinds of different things. And I just kind of wanted to take this opportunity with this project to talk about how literature is still relevant and literature doesn't always have to be just on paper. So how I'm going to do that is through a parallel narrative where it's going to be a website where there will be two perspectives. One perspective from an ebook, looking at the way ebooks are read, looking at the way ebooks are used, and different things like that. And then looking at the way um, print literature is still being published, still being read, and especially in like magazine form and still in books. So just kind of discussing about how even though a lot of people are really sometimes negative about the publishing industry and about where the future is in books and in reading in general, that I just want to show people that it is still important and it is still very relevant, and even though everything is online nowadays. So like I said, the scope of this project is going to be focusing on basically three main topics, which I will be addressing, which are the different ways the publishing industry has adapted to this change. Clearly, I can't say no one, but a lot of people are aware that ebooks are out there, that you can find anything on the internet for free, that you can read anything you want anytime you want because of the internet. And so just looking at the ways the publishing industry has adapted to that. And then in the same vein, the way libraries have adapted. A lot of libraries are offering online rentals, and you can rent books for your Kindle and everything online through your library like that. And then there's also libraries that are totally almost taking the books out of them and putting in all kinds of computers that people can use and e-readers for rent and things like that. So I'm going to be looking at those things, and then also just the way that people in general are reading, looking at trends, looking um, at the different ways and the different types of things that they're using in order to still be reading in 2014. The audience for this project is pretty general. It's educational in nature, so it should appeal to people that consider themselves readers, and also just people with a general interest in where books are headed, where literature is headed right now. As far as the outcomes go, I already mentioned that this is supposed to be educational in nature. Another thing that I plan on trying to do is making it a little bit inspirational. I want people to walk away from this project and feel like they know enough about this topic in order to make an educated decision about how they're going to keep reading in 2014, and in what ways that this project has affected them. Maybe they realize just because everybody else has a Kindle, like people are still publishing books and I can still do that, and they're going to keep reading their books. Maybe they realize all the things that you can do with a Kindle or a Nook or any type of ebook and take it to that place. So I just want people to feel like when they're done that they know that books and literature are still relevant in 2014 and the years to come. So I did my research over two main, I guess, forms. One of them was websites about my topic, which is obviously books, and then the other way was through like long form journalism stories, which have become popular in recent years, and that's kind of what I'm going to be going for when it comes to my own project. So I looked at a lot of different pieces, like by the New York Times, by a bunch of other newspapers, and then also um, some websites that have to do with bringing people together over books, book review websites, websites for publishers, things like that, and kind of looked at the way that they're reaching out to their audience and seeing how my website is going to be different from that. So just to kind of summarize what I've learned and how I will be applying these things is I came up with three themes, which is all of the websites that I looked at had a very narrow focus. They took one issue, they ran with it, they really committed to it, and that is what I need to do for mine, because if it gets too broad, all is lost. um, all of the websites were also, and journalism stories were also very visually consistent. So the designs were cohesive, everything made sense. There was no like in that, and so that was really important also for me because I want to have a unique design, as we will see later in my requirements. And then the third thing is the utilization of multimedia. I don't want this story to be static. I don't want it to be only text-based. I just want it to be something that people can experience in a variety of ways, however they would like. So to kind of discuss these, as far as narrow focus goes, like I said, this is just one example of a article by the Rolling Stone called Greenland Melting, and it was all about how obviously Greenland's ice is melting, and it's like a very big issue, and so they only focused on Greenland, and they only focused on that part of Greenland, and so that was just kind of an example of how you can take something, I mean, not that that's a small issue, but that is like a small topic, and kind of make it your own. Another article that I looked at was called Brooklyn Took It, and as you can see here, it's basically about how the Brooklyn Nets, the NBA team, kind of came into being and how they kind of got their fan base because they were struggling, and so that was a very specific topic addressed in a very specific way, and it was made for a specific audience, which obviously mine is, and so I would like to follow in that type of style. For the next theme of being visually consistent, one of my favorite pieces that I looked at was called Machines for Life, and it's about Daft Punk, and it was in Pitchfork, and basically a story just totally about the guys and about what they're doing, and so anyway, the entire design was extremely cohesive. It made sense, and it looked really cool. So here is the like opening scene, I would say, and then you kind of move down, and they're still there throughout the whole thing, and they look like this, and it's very futuristic, which makes a perfect sense for it being Daft Punk, and they're always wearing those helmets, and it's just, it was very interesting and a really good example of good design and how good design only accentuates your good content. And then finally, for my last theme, was the utilization of multimedia. This particular article, Snowfall, was published, and it is about, by the New York Times, and it's about an avalanche that killed a bunch of like very expert skiers and snowboarders. I think it was 3 people died, but the way that the story is told is just incredible when it comes to the utilization of multimedia. It's extremely long, it has a lot of scrolling, so I'm not taking everything that the story necessarily has, but it does have the like the screenshot shows, you can see that this is a pullout from, if I can get this to work. So here's the article, and then if you see over here, you can click this man's name because he's the one being talked about in this part, and you can flip through photos of him. So like it adds a personal dimension, first of all, and it also makes it extremely easy for users to know what they're doing. You know that when you click on that, you're going to see photos of him because right here, not pictured, is a photo of him that you would click on to get to this slideshow. So I really liked that and the way it was implemented. Another thing that they did was include 911 calls in the parts where they were obviously talking about 911, and you got to listen to that phone call, and you could click it right here. You didn't have to leave, you didn't have to go anywhere else, which is going to be a key part of mine as well. I don't want to have to make people click all over the place. I want everything to be in one place. They can read it at their own pace and pick up from wherever, but everything that they need to experience the story is right there in what they're looking at, which is exactly what happened here with Snowfall. So that was a really good research tool. Yeah. Now to kind of talk about my requirements. To get these requirements, I thought about my research, I looked at the usability goals, and thought about what I wanted my site to be. So I'm just going to kind of go over them and talk a little bit about them. But my first requirement is that users should be able to engage with the content. I want users to be able to comment, to be able to share posts that they really like, and so engaging is always important because you want people to feel a connection to your work, and I want people to want to share what I'm going to be creating. My next requirement is a little bit more on the design side. It says the website should have a distinct design that separates it from others. There's a lot of websites out there, and in order to generate traffic, in order to be memorable, the design needs to be memorable in and of itself, and it also needs to be cohesive, like we saw with the Daft Punk Machines for Life article, and just kind of give it its own identity as a website. Content should be presented in an easy to read and understand format. This is pretty self-explanatory. I think that a narrative like the one that I'm doing could get a little text heavy, and so I want to make sure that everything is broken up, there's enough white space, it's easy for people to read, and it's not too overwhelming. The website should have a search feature. That's important for efficiency. The content should be, like I talked about earlier, it's a parallel narrative told from a book's perspective. So we're going to be looking at two different ways books are being printed right now, and that is how we're telling the story. Is what's the life of an ebook, what's the life of a print book in 2014, and what does that mean for the reader? Just a safety thing would be that users can utilize the site without creating a profile. There's no, the only social functions are commenting and sharing, which people don't really need to make an entire profile for. They don't need to like store anything or anything like that, so it just would be easier if they did not have to make a profile. As I kind of talked about earlier with the snowfall example, I want users to be able to experience the entire project in one place. You don't have to click around, you don't have to go from page to page. It's right there. If there's a video relating to the topic, the video is right there. You don't have to go looking for it. If there's a separate article about this, the link is right there and it tells you where you're going to go, photos, etc. So everything will be in the same place, and kind of going off that, it will be told through different chapters. So you can kind of select your chapter and go from there, but you won't always know when you're entering a new chapter, just as a signpost type of thing. Users will be able to experience the narrative in a non-linear way. This is kind of like what I was just talking about with the chapters thing, which I think is why it's on here twice. It's easier if users can just jump in wherever, which will be the plan. Each chapter will be obviously related to each other, but you can read one chapter without reading another one and still understand the story fine, because each chapter will be addressing a different topic related to the general topic. This is kind of an experience goal. I just want, as I talked about with the outcomes, I want users to be inspired. If they have a certain way that they've been reading, I want them to continue that. If they feel like they want to. If they feel like they want to change based on what they've seen in my work, then I want them to be able to do that too. I want them to know that literature is still alive and well. Another thing is that this won't be like continuously updated. Once the content is created and the website is done. There's not really a lot of updating. It's not like a day-to-day type of thing. So it's a story, and once the story is told, then the story has been told. Okay. Users should be able to like the posts that they find particularly interesting. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then users should be able to submit their own relevant content. So that kind of just has to do with being able to, if they find something that they really want, they can either post it in the comment or submit their own, and there will be like a little user section where those things will go, and that will be the only other separate part of the experience. So I think that is a general overview of my project. Just to recap, it's going to be an interactive narrative, interactive in the fact that users will be able to use a variety of multimedia, and in order to experience the content, which is based primarily in the success of the publishing industry and where that's going in current time. And yeah, so it's a two-part narrative, and I really hope that it all works out. Thanks for listening.